Hey, gorgeous, and welcome to this episode of the Magnetic Woman Show. I am really excited to do this episode because my life, like so many other people's lives over the last, well, for me, it's been like the last week, has been consumed by off campus. We're talking more rewatches than I want to admit because it would be embarrassing. My entire TikTok feed is just edits, is breakdowns, is conversations about off campus. And I think that that is for a lot of really great and quite frankly important reasons. So, spoilers ahead. I'm going to be talking about the entire series. I'm going to be giving spoilers because not to spoil it, but to make the points that I'm going to make. I even took notes, which if you know me, and you know how I tend to create content, your girl's not often working off of notes, okay? Like, especially when it comes to podcasts, I tend to have an idea, maybe like a rough layout in my mind, but I wanted to make sure that I really hit the specific points that I wanted to make. So I have notes, so I might be looking at those throughout the podcast. Okay, so let's fucking dive in. And I think that it's really important for us to note, to recognize, like, this show, there's a reason why this show has tens of millions of streams within the first 12 days, 2 weeks. And it is so much more than a rom-com, in my opinion. In fact, I saw this guy on TikTok, which I will be responding to his video, where he's like, this cheesy rom-com. And I'm like, cheesy, cheesy. Okay, no, I think that this show is so popular right now because, quite frankly, we as women have been consistently and constantly disappointed by the men of the world over the last 10 fucking years, and especially over the last few years. The truth is, right, we have watched men that we know, men in our lives, men of the world, put men in positions of power who say the most heinous things about women and laugh it off as it saying, oh, that's just locker room talk. We have, especially here in the United States, watch them roll back our abortion rights, our healthcare rights, talk about, you know, how to force women to have children, how to force them into marriages. We have watched with our breath held as different states pass laws stating that if a woman seeks abortion or try to pass laws stating that if a woman tries to seek abortion care, that that's like capital, she deserves capital punishment while the men sit by, do nothing, say nothing. We have watched the entirety of the Epstein files and all of that come out. And many of us women who are millennials and Gen X realize that our entire childhood was run by and profited by pedophiles while men do nothing, say nothing. We've seen it come to light that there is a website that teaches men how to brutalize and attack their wives and partners, and men are over here splitting hairs on is it 62 million hits that month or 62 million people, right? So we're like constantly being shown that men do not care, they do not respect us, and before anyone goes into not all men, anybody who has to say not all men is part of the fucking problem, okay? So we've watched this again and again and again. And for those of us, especially millennial, I'm 39, sitting down to watch a rom-com, there are certain themes that you've come to expect in a show, in a rom-com. We were raised on rom-coms in the late 90s and early 2000s. And a lot of those themes were deeply problematic and deeply misogynistic, right? And off campus breaks every single one of them. It breaks every single one of them, and it proves so many things in doing that. It proves that we don't need those specific storylines in order for a show to be popular, to take off. We don't need all of this like up and down drama, trauma, turmoil. So I want to talk about some of the specific themes that off campus um, does differently than previous rom-coms and how I think we're going to continue to see more and more of this. So, first and foremost, I have not read the books. Right now, I don't plan on reading the books. I'm talking specifically about what has happened, what happens in the show. So if you are like a book fan and you're looking for book lore, you're not getting that here. Again, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. The book series was written by a woman and the show is created by a woman, right? If the showrunner is a woman. And I think that it can be really easy to just like laugh that off and be like, well, this is just like the women's idea, you know? Okay, so let's dive in. So, one of the first things that I loved about Off Campus is the friendship between Allie and Hannah. In rom-coms of old, in a lot of media, in fact, I did an entire podcast episode about this, we see female friendships that are made up of jealousy, backstabbing, enemies to friends, like holding things back from each other in a really manipulative way. I also did an entire podcast episode on Tell Me Lies, right? So if you're thinking of like the Tell Me Lies friendships, like all of those girls are awful to each other behind each other's backs. And this idea of the frenemy, this idea of like pitting women against each other is so deeply rooted in patriarchy. In off campus, we see true female friendship, true sisterhood, right? These girls are each other's best friends. They have each other's backs. There's no scene where they're talking bad about each other behind their backs, where one is jealous of the other. They just cheer each other on. Like there's a scene where Allie is talking to Hannah about her boyfriend, how she thinks she might need to break up with him because he's not supportive of her, that she got an agent. And Hannah's like, you got an agent? That is everything. And it's just like hyping Allie up. Like, yes, this is what you deserve. Like, you're so amazing. Of course you have an agent, right? After Allie's boyfriend was basically like, do you even think like getting an agent's gonna help you? Like, come on, right? And then again, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Hannah was sexually assaulted in high school. And through the series, we realize that she tells Allie that she had a friend who went to a party who was drugged and sexually assaulted. And we get this beautiful scene towards the end of the season where Hannah is finally ready to tell Allie, like, it wasn't her friend, it was her. And now, mind you, in one of the first few episodes, they're at a party and somebody's like, Hannah, you should get a drink. Like, come on. And Allie jumps in and is like, no, we do not pressure Hannah to drink. Don't you remember her? I told you about her friend who was assaulted at a party. Like, we don't pressure her, right? Like standing for her, standing in this story, right? So we get to this scene, and Hannah's like, remember how I told you about my friend? And she doesn't even have to say it before Allie says, you are the friend. I know. I've always known. I'm getting choked up as I say it. I just figured you would come to me when you were ready. And you are amazing and you are everything. And we just see this like beautiful friendship between them. And, I think so many women, especially now, who have like decentered men who have been doing a lot of work on themselves, like, and in the age of AI and in the age of social media, where we're overly connected in so many ways, like we yearn for that sisterhood that is shown in this show. And we yearn for it because true sisterhood occupies such a fundamental and foundational space in a woman's life. And again, throughout the majority of our entire lives, as somebody who is 39 years old, and when we look at like through our ancestral lineage, women have been pitted against each other. And that has happened because when women see each other as competition, we cannot be in community and sisterhood and really push back against all of the things that are trying to oppress us. And so we're seeing this shift now, like in culture and in society, which is why I think how Allie and Hannah's friendship is portrayed in the show. It is by far one of my favorite things. Like I would say it rivals the love stories, right? And on that note, how it portrays the other women. So again, this is based on a hockey team, and I've heard that in the books the women aren't portrayed this way, but I love that the show made this tweak or change. The women, the girls that like follow the hockey players around, go to the hockey games, they're called puck bunnies. And in the show, Hannah's like, "Oh my God, you don't actually call women that." And Garrett's like, "They call themselves that." And there's never in the show this degrading of the puck bunnies, which again is what we typically see in pop culture, in society, in the world, right? This like degrading of women who are following around sports teams, going after athletes, whatever, whatever. But in the show, that's not the case at all, right? And so I love that even one of the quote puck bunnies, Kendall and Garrett are like hooking up at the beginning of the series. And it's said that they've been hooking up for a few months and it ends and she's like pissed off about it. And then later they end up having a conversation about it. And Garrett does nothing but like show her respect and apologize for how it ended. And it's never, it's never, we're as the audience never made to believe that he sees Kendall as like less than because she was sleeping with him. It's like he goes, I didn't want a relationship. I told you that. We don't really know anything about each other, you know? And so how they are portraying women, and again, in contexts that in the past have been portrayed as like sluts, less than, not deserving of respect, is important. Okay. So with that, this is one of my favorite things that the show did. It is so female pleasure focused. And what I mean by that is we're watching characters self-pleasure. We are not watching them self-pleasure, right? We're like the female characters self-pleasure. There's vibrators. There is one scene where a woman is going down on a man. And that is after Hannah and Garrett officially get together, and it's like that sexy the montage of them like sleeping together and being together and blah, blah. And there's like one little snippet of her going down on him. There are multiple scenes with multiple men going down on female characters. Okay. That is not something that we ever saw in media in rom-coms, right? Even there's a scene where, you know, Garrett's stressed out and like there's a girl that's hitting on him and then Hannah comes over because they're supposed to study and she walks in on him and he's going down on this other woman, right? She leaves, he chases her out, and he's like, "Yeah, she said she was going to help me de-stress." Now, if you're a millennial woman, if you're a woman, right? This idea of like helping a man de-stress often is about his pleasure, okay? Now, I am obviously of the mind that men can take a lot of and should take a lot of pleasure on going down on a woman. However, that's not what is typically displayed in media, right? And especially men who are meant to be kind of this like peak idea of masculinity. So these male characters are D1, well, I'm assuming they're D1 um, college athletes because I don't think they have the Frozen Four for hockey below D1. I don't know. Anyways, they're top college, they'd have to be D1 because two of the characters are like supposedly getting drafted to the NHL. So these men are hot. They are in incredible shape, right? They're like meant to be these jocks, this idea of peak masculinity. And throughout the show, we see them being focused on female pleasure, being focused on the women that they're with, their pleasure, that the women have orgasms, that they experience pleasure. And one of my favorite scenes is when Dean and Allie are like hooking up and nobody knows and they're in the bathtub and he's holding a vibrator and somebody comes to walk in and Allie like submerges herself in water so nobody sees and he's just holding this vibrator, right? There's in no way, shape, or form is there ever this like he feels insecure because now they're bringing sex toys in, like nothing like that at all, at all. And that to me, between that and like the different bodies, female bodies in the show, is like so healing. I've seen that comment again and again and again. So many women saying, I didn't end up hating my body after watching this show. And for me, it's like, I want to take it a step further. I loved the fact that female pleasure, women receiving pleasure from the male partners that they're with, and women experiencing orgasms was a priority. And it was a priority for these men who are seen to be top peak masculine examples, right? Like this is happening at the same time that we have, who the fuck is that dude, Clavicular, out here saying that he doesn't worry about giving women orgasms because there's quote no ROI for him after spending the quote unquote extra time to have that happen. Like, and he's meant to be this idea of like peak masculinity. Like the juxtapositions are just so incredible. So the female pleasure and the multiple scenes of men going down on women, the women talking about self-pleasuring, women using vibrators, like love it, love it, love it. Okay. Um, on that note, pleasure and sex. So we learn in at the end of episode 3, Hannah asks Garrett if he can give her an orgasm, like help her achieve, experience an orgasm with a man. And at the beginning of episode 4, she talks about how she tells him she was sexually assaulted in high school. And this is another thing that I love. Her character is not defined by this. Like the sexual assault storyline is there, but that's not what she's like working through. Okay. She says to him, and it's very clear in how she acts, how she moves through the world. She has worked through this. She had an incredible therapist. She's reconnected to her body. She's like, I can give myself orgasms. She's like, but when I'm with another guy, which gives us this indication that she has been with other men after the sexual assault, she's like, I can't. I freeze. And I want to have this experience because, you know, she wants to get with this guy, Justin. And so, how they handled her sexual assault and how the storyline was, that is not what she's like working through. What she's working through is the fact that she needs to write a song to save her scholarship. Okay? It's not about her working through stuff with sexual assault. Okay, so then we get Garrett going to Dean, who's like top ladies man, and is like, I had a woman ask me to do something. And Dean's like, do all of it. Whatever she asks, do it. And they're in the weight room, right? Which is like base essentially a locker room, right? So we've been told our entire lives as women that like, oh, that's just locker room talk, like all of the misogyny, all of the degrading, all of the shit that our fucking president says. Oh, that's just locker room talk. Like, blah, 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 blah. And here we are, we have two men, again, examples of like quote unquote top masculinity in the quote unquote locker room. And Garrett never says it's Hannah. Dean's like, I'm assuming this is Hannah. And Dean's like, look, if this is her first time, she might not orgasm. And Garrett's like, not an option, has to orgasm. And Dean says, respect. And then he says one of my most favorite lines in the entire series, the thing that works all the time, every time, is trust. It's safety. She needs to feel safe. And the way you do that is consent. So the show is like men can be the quote peak of masculinity and talk to each other about consent. Talk to each other about how to make a woman feel safe in the bedroom, right? And again, Dean's just like, yeah, it's consent. That's the hottest thing. And then, Garrett's like, well, she's trusting me with this, and I don't know that she should. And Dean says, but she is, and that itself is hot. This is, I think, one of the main reasons why so many women, it's like, why is this show such an obsession? And it's like, because this is what we want from men, when yet for the last 5 to 10 years, all we've been getting is disrespect, misogyny, and being brushed off like we're overreacting and like our desires don't count, right? And I know that there can be this like flippant attitude of like, oh, it's just a rom-com. Oh, it's just like written by women, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, again, why are we acting like respect, consent, the focus on female pleasure is some sort of fucking fantasy world, you know? So the way that consent is handled by these men, by these college athletes, is just chef's fucking kiss, right? And then we go into episode 4, and Hannah and Garrett are like, you know, gonna have sex, and she's starting to undress, and he turns around and she says, I don't know why you turned around. You're gonna see me naked soon. And he goes, not until you want me to. I mean, ugh. Like it's just so fucking hot. Okay. Um, this also leads into one of my favorite rom-com tropes that, like, one of my favorite things that they did that broke such a long-standing, like, standard, if you will, for rom-coms. The main girl is confident in herself. Like all of the rom-coms of the early 2000s had this idea of like, so you have the super hot jock, right? Who can't be tied down, he's emotionally unavailable, he's emotionally volatile. And then you have this nerdy girl who is awkward and like doesn't know how to be in her body, wearing oversized, ugly clothes, glasses. Like she doesn't think that she's great or pretty or any of the things. And it is only when this man sees her that she's like, maybe I am pretty, right? It's only him that can see her beauty and her brilliance. And even then, she's still like self-conscious and like not fully owning her brilliance. Hannah, on the other hand, not that way at all. She's confident. Again, the storyline is like she has to write this song for the pop showcase and she's struggling with writing lyrics that move people emotionally because she's so afraid to let people in. But she is confident in her um ability to be a classical composer. She is confident in her performance ability. You know what I mean? Like she is confident. She has friends. Like it, this idea that like a woman can't see her own brilliance, her own beauty, and it's only when a man sees it is so disgusting to me at this point, right? And it's like that was the shit that we were raised on. And it's problematic as fuck because the patriarchy cannot continue to stand if women see their own brilliance, right? So that is again, one of my favorite things that this show did is it's like, yes, these two are agreeing to like a fake relationship, but Hannah is not this like nerd who doesn't recognize her own beauty and brilliance, and it's not until Garrett sees it in her that she is like, oh, maybe I am pretty. She's like, confident in herself. And I fucking love that. Um, okay. So I think I speak for just about every single woman when I say that we all collectively held our breaths in Episode 7, so the setup of episode 7 is Garrett and the hockey team are playing this other hockey team. And the like top guy on the other hockey team is actually the guy that sexually assaulted Hannah. But nobody knows this. Hannah knows because she found out that that's, who was on the other hockey team, but she doesn't tell anybody. So she's freaking out, spinning out, spinning out about her show case. She doesn't show up to the game. So it's like, the first two periods, I guess, of hockey. Garrett's distracted. Hannah's not there. He doesn't know why, blah, blah. She finally shows up and they meet in this, like, I don't think it was a weight room, but some kind of like, you know, equipment room or something. And I think we as women collectively held our breath waiting for Garrett to take his anger, frustration, all of it out on Hannah, right? Because we have all had the experience of men not knowing how to regulate their own fucking emotions and taking it out on us, right? Where it's like you show up, they're stressed, and they're like, "Where were you? I've been freaking out, like, blah, blah, blah. How could you do this to me?" We all held our breath waiting for that. And what does Garrett do? He goes, "I was just worried about you. Can you text me next time so I don't worry? I thought something happened to you." That healed something in all of us, I think. And again, we're getting these, like, the duality of these men, these male characters who are peak patriarchal masculine, la 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 la, and emotionally intelligent and able to regulate themselves and like aware of things. And they talk to each other about things. And so that scene again was so perfect. It was so perfect because we were all waiting for him to take it out on Hannah because that's been our experience. And yet, I feel like this show is like, just because that's been the experience doesn't mean that has to be the standard. And that I feel like is the theme of the show. Just because this has been our experience as women does not mean we need to allow this to be the standard. Okay? And again, we get glimpses of this throughout the entire series. Like, they're at the party at the beginning of the show, and Hannah tells Garrett she doesn't drink at parties. So he's looking for something non-alcoholic or some kind of mixer, can't find it. And John Logan, one of the teammates, is like, well, a closed beer is safer. Like they're aware of why women wouldn't want to drink at a college party. And they're like, instead of being like, hey, does this freak you out? They're just like, try a closed beer. Try this, try that. It And the scenes where Garrett is, talking to his teammates, and the one guy's like, dude, you like her? And he's like, shit, yeah, I do. And they're like, yeah, go do something about it. She's great. That's another thing that I feel like so often in rom-coms and shows, it's like the guy, the cool guy, the jock, the whatever, who's like falling for the nerd. All of his friends are like, dude, her, she fucking sucks. Really, her? And instead, they're all like, yeah, Wellesley, like she's the fucking best. And to the point that at the end, when she does perform in the showcase, and her and Garrett have broken up, Allie, her bestie, who's got her back, calls one of the hockey players, calls Dean to get Garrett to go because she's like, I know I am not going to let my girl go through this without the man that she loves. Like, I am here for this, ride or fucking die. And when Dean tells Garrett, okay, we got to go to the showcase, all of the hockey players are like, let's go support her. They're all in the second row, like cheering her on. And so again, this idea that like what we've been given these things, the rom-coms of the past, these tropes, these storylines about women, about how men treat women, about whatever. And it's like framed as like, oh, it's frivolous, it's stupid, so women love it. And it's like, this is all you get, so accept it. And I feel like off campus is like, just because you've been given shit before does not mean you need to keep accepting it. This is why, again, I have rewatched this show an embarrassing amount of times. I don't want to watch anything else because of how well done this show is. Okay, so again, that scene where we're all expecting Garrett to freak out and he doesn't. Okay. Wow, wow, wow. Another scene that I think has been so healing for so many women is when Hannah is freaking out. Her and Garrett broke up, her bike broke, she is losing her scholarship, and she calls her mom bawling. And she tells her mom all of these things, and she's like, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. She's like, you and dad don't have the money, which is what, like, don't have money to pay for the next semester for me because of the therapy, because of the lawyers. It's my fault. I assumed her mother was going to say, no, it's not. And instead, her mother says, and this, like, I was like, holy shit, these writers. She goes, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? Where Hannah has to like stop in this shame and guilt spiral to really see and face again, she did nothing wrong. And her mom was just like, yeah, you were a high school kid who had a beer. That's not wrong. Everything that happened to you was not your fault. Like it was such a beautiful, beautiful scene. Because again, as we know, with sexual assault, with violence against women, with really anything, the woman is blamed. I mean, look, when I ended my last relationship and started telling people about like how manipulative he was and how he was emotionally abusive and how he threatened me physically, it's like I had a close friend of mine who ironically had also been in an abusive relationship, like, well, why were you with him? And I'm like, girl, why are you turning this on me? Like, hello, that is the problem. And so the fact that this show is just like, no, Hannah, like, no, you don't get to sit in the shame and guilt of this. Like, your mother is going to hold you, of course, and then, remind you that you don't have to sit in this shame and guilt. Um, so I think that it also shows these men, these male characters, yearning for the respective women. So Garrett yearning for Hannah, Dean yearning for Allie. That yearning, that tension is so hot and like so I think that that's one thing that's reawoken for a lot of women because again, we've been so utterly disappointed, discarded by men, by society, right? Like how many marriages, relationships have ended because men are like down this red pill pipeline, which is built upon degrading women, is built upon disrespecting women. And here we have a show that's showing men respect women and want to be with them because they see them for the person that they are. I mean, I feel like there's so much more I can say about this show. So hold on, let me let me just see if there's anything else. Um, coming up. And let me check my list and make sure I got all the top things. So again, like none of the normal rom-com tropes of like the girl not having confidence, girls hating each other, female friendships being portrayed and depicted in a way which is like women hate each other, the men having a sense of emotional intelligence and simultaneously like throughout the show Garrett is dealing with his own childhood trauma, right? Like he was abused. His dad was violent towards him and his mother. And he is battling like I don't want to be my father, but at the same time I'm basically like walking in his footsteps and nobody knows until partway through the season when he tells Hannah that his dad was abusive And so, how often do we hear like men excusing their like bad behavior, their being emotionally stunted, their weaponized incompetence, their whatever on like their grandma dying when they were 5. And it's like, okay, but fucking work through it, like, and so we're watching Garrett work through this, but he's not taking that trauma out on Hannah. Again, and I think that that is what is so well depicted in the scene in that like equipment room during the game, and where he's like, I was just worried about you. I was just worried about you. He's not taking, because his dad's there, it's like bringing up all this stuff. He's not taking any of that out on Hannah. These men are having conversations about women. And then, at the end of the season, he does end up telling John Logan about his dad. And we don't see that conversation like as a whole. It's implied that that conversation happens. And then, in the last episode, when they find out about Hannah doing the showcase, and they're like, we gotta go. And Garrett's like, I don't know that she'll want me there. And John Logan's like, you are not your father. Like, reassuring his best friend, like, you trusted me with this really emotionally vulnerable information. And not only am I not gonna like use it against you or make fun of you, but I'm also not gonna ignore it. Right? Like, and so this show is showing like men having male friends, men emotionally connecting with other men is amazing. It's necessary. And again, I just love that it's the example of this are men that, for all intents and purposes, are the patriarchy's idea of peak masculinity, right? And so, yeah, it's not that Garrett is this perfect person or this perfect character. He's dealing with his own trauma, his own childhood trauma, his own fears, his own insecurities, but he doesn't take it out on Hannah. And that's the other thing that, I really love, where with both Dean and Garrett, they're attracted to, like, Garrett is in love with Hannah and Dean's clearly in love with Allie. Um, but it's not this like, oh my God, they're so much different than every other girl. Like every other girl is just bleh, and like they're different because they're just somehow quote unquote enough. Like there's this idea that we've been given via the patriarchy that if we are just enough, then we will get the respect that we want from men. Then we will get the love that we want from men. And that is the biggest fucking lie. And honestly, that is what keeps women in relationships that are manipulative, that are abusive, that are not working. Because we're told if we just work hard enough, if we're just enough, if we just take care of them enough, or emotionally there for them enough, or whatever enough, they'll finally choose us. And with both Garrett and Hannah, or I'm sorry, Garrett and Dean, there's this sense of like they're getting to know Hannah and Allie and they like them. But it's not, they don't pit Hannah against other women. Like again, Garrett's hooking up with this woman, Kendall, at the beginning of the show. Never in the show is he like, oh, Hannah's so different than Kendall. Like they don't pit them against each other. Dean hooks up with a lot of women, right? And he's never like, oh, pitting Allie against these other women. And it's so fucking refreshing because here's the truth. How a man treats you is how a man treats women. Period. Period. And it's like I spent years in our relationship thinking that if I just did enough emotional labor, healed enough in myself, worked harder on the relationship, showed up in a way that I thought he wanted enough, he would start respecting me more. He would start giving room and space to my desires, my wants, my needs. And it's like, no. And it was never that I, quote, wasn't enough. It's like, that is how he treats women. Period. This idea of being the enough woman is so toxic, detrimental, harmful to women. So I loved that that was not, there was no even inkling of that in the show. These men yearning for these women, their yearning is not portrayed in a way of pitting women against each other, right? Okay, let me again double check my list here. Um, okay, so I think I got to everything on my list. Um, and I just feel like, one, we need more shows like this. And clearly, this show has broken the mold of like, we don't, because I think there's this idea that like you need so much drama, you need so much turmoil, right? And look, I get it, right? We see how many people love reality TV, how much reality TV is like huge business, and it is built on like fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? Like it's built on so much drama and turmoil and pain and trauma and women hating each other and cat fights and you name it and cheating and whatever. And it's like this show I think has shown you don't need that for people to watch, to people, for people to be invested, for people to be obsessed with it. And in fact, I think it's because none of that is in this show, which is why people are so invested. It's why I'm so invested. It's why I don't want to watch anything else. I'm like, yes, I want to watch two best friends have each other's back. Yes, I want to watch men who are hot as fuck respect women and focus on female pleasure and orgasm. Yes, I want to watch hot men have emotionally vulnerable conversations with each other and support each other. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of this. We should see a lot more of this. And it's like all those fucking podcast bros out there where it's like, this is what women want. No, what women want, watch off campus. Be like these men. That's what women want. That's what women want. Stop listening to these podcast bros. Start listening to what women want, which is respect. I want you to see me as a person and respect me as a person. I think that, again, so many of us have come to this realization, come to terms with the fact that most men do not like women. And that is a product of the patriarchy. That is a product of this kind of the media that we've all watched and ingested. You know what I mean? I just started reading this book called Word Slut, which is so good, but it's a little bit heavy, so I have to take it slow because I get so angry. And the first chapter opens with, if you want to insult a woman, call her a prostitute. If you want to insult a man, call him a woman. Right? So like men, millennial men, Gen X men, also watched rom-coms growing up, and they're watching quote unquote masculinity being portrayed as disrespecting women, as misogyny, as sexually assaulting women, as joking about that, as mocking women, all of these things. Like they got the same media that we did. And yes, patriarchy is so harmful to men and women. Absolutely. And it's like off campus is giving men also a roadmap on how to like, yo, check your internalized patriarchy and misogyny. You're going to get so much farther with women in relationships, in your marriage, in the world, if you just respect us. So that was a lot. I'm also going to be writing a Substack article on this. And I'm gonna have it be up for free. So if you want to read it, I'm probably gonna be making different points and going into even more depth that I just feel like, this idea that this like rom-com is like frivolous and whatever is, and now I can't remember the name because I know that there's a name for it, where it's basically like women's things that women enjoy are kind of like cast off as stupid and superficial, right? Like when women are really into an artist, it's like, oh my God, that's so stupid. But men design their entire life around a sports team that they've never played on, and it's like, that's cool, you know? And I feel like that there is kind of that idea or that energy happening with off campus. And there's a lot of really incredible takes on TikTok, and I've watched a lot of them. I've watched a lot of edits, and people are talking, breaking some of these things down. But I think that we need, like, putting it in the overall context of our current, like, culture, society, and politics in the United States is really important. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I do want to say, as I end here, I'm recording this on May 31st. So up until June 3rd, so for the next few days, I'm doing this kind of like mid-year sale. So you can get a 2-day in-person intensive with me for 40% off. Mystics, Harlots, and Heretics is 50% off. And the Mary Magdalene retreat you can save $500 for. So all of the links are below. I'm not going to go into depth like talking about those. If you have questions, you can message me on social media. I've talked about them in different podcast episodes recently, so you can go back and listen to that. Most of the sales pages have videos anyway, so but I want to really keep this focused on off campus. So, okay, my loves, I will see you next time.